Kedar, what
Yes.
time is it?
It's Deathloop time.
That was a good improv. I like it. I was actually expecting you'd say it's evening, but oh well, this works
It's
too. All right, but Kedar, welcome. We are here today to discuss Deathloop, and
Yep.
we are both the platinum boys today.
Oh
It
yes.
sounds so funny when I say that. We are both the platinum boys today because we're both platinum the game.
Hmm.
Incidentally, 1 hour apart from each other, essentially.
Yeah,
Uh,
pretty much. That's the
so
best way to say.
absolutely, and on that note, today is on that note, that loop that note. Okay, on that note, today's episode is all about Arkane's latest foray into the immersive simulation genre. I have a specific term for it, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But in essence, today we're going to be talking about Deathloop. Uh, we've both finished the game. We've both platinumed it. It's been a very interesting experience. We've been talking about it non-stop for the last
A
1 week
lot.
or so at least. Yeah, it's 29th today, right? We got the game
I
in our.
don't. Yeah.
We've been
Yeah. We
talking about
got
it
a.
for 8 days straight right now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8 days. We've been playing it non-stop, and
I
we've
don't.
just sort of.
I don't think we've looked at anything else. Like we
Yeah,
used to play
literally.
Legends and stuff. We've
Yeah,
just not gone
we were
back.
playing Ghost of Tsushima Legends for like almost a week and a half, 2 weeks in a row, consistently, and then we just stopped once that loop came, and we've not looked back ever since. So,
Yeah.
this episode is going to essentially cover everything to do with Deathloop. We are also going to be doing a tier list of the visionaries in Deathloop. So, fair warning, this is going to be filled with plenty of spoilers.
Yep.
We're going to be talking about
All the
everything good,
spoilers.
bad, ugly, not so ugly about the game.
Mm.
Uh, things that we love, things that we hate, review, and everything else in between. So, if you haven't played Deathloop or if you have played Deathloop on the PC, you probably want to look away. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But
Or
yeah,
yeah.
all right. So let's jump right into it. Kedar, what is your first impression of the game? I mean, I wouldn't say it's first impression anymore because we finished the game. But
Yeah.
let's
But
just
no, I
go.
think that's a very good point to start with
Yeah.
because I think we had, rather, I had a different conversation with you the day I began playing the game, which was like, this is starting to look like all the bad things, like all the bad pieces of a formula, just like not summing up the right way.
Yep.
Because the game throws at you like not Death Stranding levels of tutorials, which you will experience shortly,
Oh, very
but
shortly.
there are just like pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of tutorials thrown at you right from the get-go. It is a steep, or it gives you the illusion of a steep learning curve, not that the learning curve is essentially steep.
Yep. Yep.
So that was one thing, and I'll get back to that. The second thing was the loot mechanics, and I say that with the inverted commas because it's not traditional loot. It does involve some, moderate, epic, legendary, that sort of hierarchy, right? With the
Loop tiers.
trinkets
Yep.
and
Yep.
yeah, and that's fine because I think by loop 3 you just stop getting the lower tiers once you have better equipment. So
Yep.
that sort of faded away very soon. The thing about the tutorials though, or the thing about how the learning curve is manufactured for the player is it is annoying at first. There is just a whole lot of text that you have to, look at. And it's Arkane has sort of rewritten their formula for this game. So
Yep.
it sort of feels like they're spoon feeding the player just a little too much. Those were my first impressions. As you do get to the main game, right, after the scripted couple of instances end, that when the game actually opens up and lets you sort of plan your days and plan how you wish to play every day, that's where it felt like the training wheels were off, and now it's time for you to learn how you can play your way, which is sort of their shtick. So
Yep.
yeah, I think first impressions went exponentially up within like the first 2 hours of me playing it. But I feel like that is where my skepticism seeps in a little bit. If it took me 2 hours to sort of get into the groove, if someone's new to the genre and is playing it on Steam or has a physical copy, they may want to like refund it.
Yeah, that's
That
quite
is what
possible.
worries me,
Quite possible.
right? And
I think
of
that's
course,
probably what's happened
PC
in
is
the
a
most
different
case as well for
story,
the PC players.
right? Because performance issues and all
Yep.
that coupled together, right?
Optimization. DRM is primarily the
Yeah,
cause for
yeah.
DRM is the cause for the issues that PC players are essentially facing.
Also, higher graphic cards for some reason can't keep up with the game's
That's
graphics.
just
I,
that's just I
I find
mean,
that
to me
absurd.
it's just so funny because
It's ironic.
it's really ironic. And irony is a topic that we're going to be talking a lot about in today's
Yep.
podcast, incidentally.
Yes.
All
So,
right.
what about you? Your first impressions
All
and
right.
then.
So I'm gonna start off by saying that with Arcane, I
Mhm.
sort of have a soft spot.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
because of course they're the guys who made Dishonored, they're the guys who made Prey, two of the most underappreciated series in my opinion, and
absolutely.
some of the most differential experiences in video games in my opinion. And I do have a very soft spot for them. So there is some element of bias that went into the picture when I started out with the game, and I think that's an important disclaimer to give off at the first impressions segment over here. So when I booted the game, yes, I was a bit put off by a couple of aspects.
Mhm.
When I say put off, I looked at them more like minor inconveniences or more like, okay, can we just like skip this part and go to the actual game itself? Uh, and those were, of course, the lengthy tutorials, the kind of ambiguous premise, which
Yeah.
took a while to set in.
Mhm.
Unlike the past Arcane games, which I've known and explored plenty. And besides that, I was like, okay, you know what? This game's got very good reviews, and there's been
Yeah.
quite a lot of that. It did lead a very good. It did have a very strong leaning on the way I decided to go into the game.
Mhm.
So I think that played a big role in determining the fact that I am going to explore this game in great detail. So after the first couple of hours, there was just no looking back with this game.
Yeah.
Honestly, I
Yeah.
was looking for any slot in my daily routine to just hop on, just boot up the PlayStation, hop into the game, do some crazy shit, even if it is senseless, mindless nonsense without
Yeah.
any clear objective. I was just like, you know what, let's just go to Uptown at noon and see what's there in the district.
Yep.
And I did a lot of that, and I spent most of my nights actually figuring out and progressing the game itself. And
Mhm.
very unique experience. Arcane has definitely pushed the boundaries of uh, its own comfort zone, I would say. I sort of
Yeah.
felt like with Dishonored and Prey, they were sort of uh, it felt like they plateaued to some extent with the Death of the Outsider and with
Yeah.
Prey. Not to say that's a bad thing because their plateau is quite it's a peak by and of itself. But uh,
Mhm.
I did feel that there was something more that needed to come from Arcane to help elevate them to the next level of
Yeah.
video game design and development.
Yep.
And I think with Deathloop, they have achieved that. They might not have done a perfect job of it, but I do believe that they've asked the right questions. They've given us a glimpse. I would say a pretty good peek or a look into their capability in design
Absolutely.
and I mean that's already been done before, but now they're doing it with a little more finesse and a lot more uh, capability as far as innovating is concerned.
Yep. Yep.
So all in all,
Um,
I have absolutely loved the game. Uh, it's been very hard to put down, and towards the end, it did get a little tedious because I was trophy hunting, and you know what we're talking about over here. But even the tedium of trophy hunting was not boring per se. That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah.
It got tedious, no doubt about it. But it
Mhm.
never felt like, oh, hey, you know what? I'm doing the same shit over and over again for the 50th time. Nah, let's just drop this and go to something else. That
Yeah.
never happened. That really never happened. You were always
Mhm.
egged on by the game to just get on with it. Go on. Do something. You
Come
never
back.
know. You
Do
never know. You
something
might
else.
find something new, which incidentally is the case because I do know for a matter of fact that there are so many things that even I have not explored despite probably putting in
Yeah.
50 hours into the game at this point.
Likewise. Likewise. I'm very confident I missed a lot of the game. A lot of it.
Yep.
In
Yep.
true Dishonored and Prey fashion, right? Like,
Oh yeah. There are. I'm pretty sure there are still nuggets of like instances that I've still not explored in Dishonored and
mhm.
Prey even today,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I do expect that that's going to be the case with Deathloop for years to come, for some
Quite a
time.
while. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so let's get down to a little bit of a structured discussion because there are a lot of things that I want to talk about with Deathloop as a game by and of itself, and
Yeah.
uh, in light of the year that we have had as well, considering that there are certain discussions to be had as far as the Game of the Year awards, which is
Yeah.
around the corner, if not too far away
Yeah.
uh, to be
3 months,
had.
I guess. Yeah, 3 months.
So let's start with what are the things about this game that you really enjoyed the most? What are your standout moments? Give me the things that you loved about the game. Give me the things that really made you feel like holy fuck, Arkane has blown the balls out of here.
Honestly, it isn't the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, the gameplay is still good. There's no doubt about it. They know how to do gunplay. I feel like they've actually evolved by the true definition of the word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like from stuff like Arcs Fatalis and Dark Messiah, which I don't know if you've played it, but if you
I,
haven't,
I have I have seen
you
those
have, right?
gameplays, by the way, even though I haven't played them
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. Dark Messiah had the kick mechanic, which is
Mm-hmm.
now in Deathloop. So, and I am just impressed because I had forgotten Dark Messiah was by Arkane or
Yeah.
a few people who worked at Arkane. I'm not very clear on those details, but yeah, I feel like it is evolution by its true sense, right? Like they went from making a linear, more open-ended but linear game like Dishonored, and now they give you essentially a choice, like a it's an illusion of a choice, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
sort of a choice
Yep.
to play your way in a structured narrative, which there may be games that have done that before, but I wouldn't say going to one quest and doing the quests in a different order is essentially breaking the structure or the sequence of a game.
Yep.
This is something new, right? This is something new. Playing through time loops to figure out like a literal detective what your next target is going to do. And yes, it is a fixed pattern, but I am fine with that because I felt like the narrative was consistent. That is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else that I loved about this game was presentation.
Mm.
Just every single thing about their presentation is phenomenal.
Yep.
Soundtrack, voice acting, just environments, color. It feels like they went from the dark, dingy corners and sewers
Of
and rat
Dunwall and
infested
Karnaka
caves
to
of Dunwall, and then just like derelict
the
corridors of
absolute
Prey
sheer desolation of Prey.
to something that is brimming with life.
Yep.
Yeah, it's brimming with life, but it's brimming with the same life every single day.
Yep.
But it's still brimming with life. Like everything, every person you meet there is out to kill,
Yep.
but it still feels so unique, so organic, so lived in, right?
Yep. Yep.
Like this. Wait, did you lose me there
I,
for a
I
sec?
think I think I
Think my
lost you for
internet.
like I think I lost you for like 15 seconds there.
Oh, damn, that's a lot. So I was just saying it's brimming with life.
Yep.
That's it.
Yes.
They're all out to get you,
They're
but
all out to
it's
get you. They're
brimming with
brimming
life.
with life. Yep. Yep. That's the essence of it. That is the candy essence of it.
It is so in one word, right? It has all the mojo of Austin Powers summed up in a game.
Oh man, that reference. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that time and again over the last 1.5 weeks essentially. Oh man. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good summary, man. I think that's a pretty good. Uh, that's a very fair assessment of what you really loved about the game.
Soundtrack, visuals, voice acting, all flavor text, like everything you see on the walls and oh my god, it's
Yeah.
just brilliant.
All right. So here's what I think the game does really well. So let me start with uh, the visual aesthetic, right? I'm going to call it the visual aesthetic of the game. I think you covered it pretty well. You summed it up pretty well when you said that they have essentially pulled out a trump card from the repertoire that I didn't even know existed. I thought that Arkane was just good at making these, sort of desolate, monotone landscapes that are, I mean, they're pretty interesting. They're pretty well designed. They're very good to look at, but they're pretty monotone. And the word I'm
Yeah.
using here is monotone because they're usually a very, muted color palettes and very distinctly grungy or high techy atmospheres and premises till date.
Yeah.
With Deathloop, they've just taken that and put it in the garbage bin and been like, hey, you know what? Just throw color every fucking where in this game. Make everything
Yes.
pop. I keep hearing this word, make everything pop. This
Yeah.
is essentially what Deathloop is. It is so colorful. It is so colorful. And it is definitely a visual improvement to a large extent because remember I told you yesterday when you finished the platinum, I spent a good 40 minutes switching off the entire HUD and just fucking around like in the entirety of the map. And I went to all 4 districts. I took like random screenshots, and I've got like an entire assortment of nice photos that I can look at and keep as
Yeah.
memorabilia for this particular game. Very, very,
Yeah.
very good visual aesthetic. I think they have. I can't recall a better rendition of retro funk in a game like this. I might not have played a lot of games, but in essence, this is probably the best that I've seen till date. In my
Yeah, this
opinion.
is probably the most memorable I have seen till
Yep,
date.
pretty
There
memorable.
might be a few that come to mind, but they don't currently because I've just been overdosing on Deathloop, of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So the recency bias definitely kicks in, but the essence really is that I can't recall anything in living memory that really I have enjoyed from a visual perspective as much as this
yeah.
has, as far as representing the whole retro perspective has come into the forefront.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Soundtrack absolutely shreds. Absolutely shreds. I will be really surprised if this game does not get soundtrack awards throughout the entirety. I
Yeah.
would be surprised. I think that
It's
says
got
it because
competition, but yeah.
it's got competition, no doubt about it. And soundtrack
Yeah, yeah.
usually is it's usually a pretty intense playing field, so to
Absolutely.
speak.
Yep. Yep.
But I do think that I would be
Oh, it's a
amazed.
contender.
I would be
It's
amazed.
yeah.
It's definitely a contender, and I would be amazed if uh, I would be surprised actually if it doesn't get this, because I don't know, I can't recollect. I mean, besides the whole Returnal soundtrack, which was pretty rad in and
Oh,
of
yeah.
itself, and Demon Souls, of course.
Mhm.
But Demon Souls, considering it's a remake and it's from last
Last
year,
year.
I
Yeah.
can't remember a soundtrack as memorable this year as others. But
Mm.
anyway, that's besides the point. Bottom line is soundtrack shreds, it slaps. Listen to it,
Yeah.
it's great. Even if you don't play the
Yeah,
game,
I've
it's that good.
I've been listening to it on loop.
Yep, on loop. Pun intended.
I had to say that. I had to make
Oh, we
that.
are going to be throwing a lot of those jokes nowadays. All right.
Yeah.
So the soundtrack, visual aesthetic aside, gunplay is tight. All the things that Arkane does well, it has done well in the past. It has retained to a large extent.
It
And
does.
I'm going to save the best for the last year and say that with the play your way concept that Arkane has really made its own, you know, playground per se.
Yeah.
With Deathloop, they've sort of elevated that to the next level. Because if you think
Mm.
about it, the essence of the game is quite straightforward. So I remember there was this instance in Dishonored 2 when, you know how Dishonored 2's chapters are presented as like memoirs in Emily's or Corvo's diary, right? They're like those chapter pieces that you see the diary itself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely. Yep.
And I remember that when Dishonored 2 came out and I literally flipped through the entire diary by finishing the game, there were, I think, 8 or 10 chapters in
Mm.
total that you played in the entirety of Dishonored 2. Uh, with Deathloop, it is essentially 4 levels.
Yeah. The 10, I think.
It's just 4 levels. But this time loop mechanic, which sounds very simple on the surface, it sounds it sounds ridiculously straightforward if you think about it from the surface level perspective, right? Oh, hey, you have 4 districts, 4 different times of the
different
day,
times.
and the
Yeah.
map evolves as per the day of the time. I mean, time of the day. And it sounds
Yeah.
very straightforward on the surface level of it. But what I did not expect, or maybe I knew and I was hoping that they would do this, was the fact that it's not just 4 different isolated time periods. It's essentially the
Mm.
same day that's been fragmented and has cascading effects on the other timelines,
Yeah.
right? Now, this is where the game gets interesting, because I remember this one instance where, remember, I told you there was this sequence in Up Down where in
Yeah.
the morning, if you visit the district in the morning, obviously people are hungover, they're drunk. There are a lot more drunk NPCs that are just sort of they're swaying and they're getting hung. They're sort of recovering from the previous night's party and they're still sort of getting back to their senses. The population itself
Yeah.
is the population density is a lot less if you visit in the morning. There are these
Yeah.
2 fools. I call them fools because they're literally fools, as Colt himself
Mm.
calls them. They're sort of digging like this mindless tunnel underneath the underpass in the map itself, and I'm like, what the fuck are
Yeah.
these guys doing? Well, let's waste them, and you waste them. But if you don't waste them, mind you, if you come back in the afternoon to the same spot, They will have actually dug you a secret entrance that I didn't know existed over there.
Exist. Yeah, I
And that
remember
becomes a
this.
new
This
path
was
for you to explore at a different time of the day. And this is
yeah
just one of at least 20, 50, I don't know how many instances that exist in the entirety of the game. It is just such a simple
easy.
concept if you think about it from the surface. But it is so well done. It is so well done because you have to think. It's essentially reimagining the same scene multiple ways. I remember I go back to Crack in the Slab at this point, which is
Yeah.
probably my what probably top five favorite missions that I've ever played in video game history. Because I think
Okay.
from an execution perspective, Crack in the Slab is incredibly difficult. You're trying to render two timelines at once in the same frame, which is very
Yeah.
difficult. It's very complex. Considering that it's going to be populating AI and of course the design
Yeah.
assets, all that all together is completely separate. They haven't done Crack in
Yeah.
the Slab here, but what they have done is they have done four layers of Crack in the Slab multiplied by four, in
Yeah.
essence. And that's what I love about the game. I think that's what makes it a standout. And I think that single formula by and of itself is going to give them the game of the year. The fact that they managed to innovate with this very simple concept.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's not without its flaws. It has its own flaws and drawbacks and inconveniences, which we'll get to probably in about 5 minutes from now. But the fact that they were able to introduce us to this very simple concept and deliver it in such a fluid manner,
Yeah.
is something that really set the game apart for me. And that is what really clinched it for me this year, because there are so many of these instances, hey, if I come back at this point of the time in the day, what's going to change? It left me with that sense of I need to know what happens at this point of the day.
Mhm.
That unending sense of curiosity sort of crept in, and that's a very delightful experience in video games for me, when something
Yeah.
is able to really make you want to come back and explore a sandbox level over and over again,
Yeah.
because very few games have done that before.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, and it's that coupled with, like, I always say this, like, this is my design philosophy that I love to follow, and I'll always say this. I think I've said this on every single podcast. It is small maps stuffed to the brim, overflowing with content,
That's the point.
are way better than an open world sandbox, where fun is scattered and it's just
And there
60%
is
downtime,
60% traversal
40% picking
or
up shit.
yep.
Yeah. It's just you're just walking and doing nothing in most games. Here, even when you walk, you have to be mindful of maybe a different alternative route. You have to improvise when shit goes south. And I think that's a very good point to sort of spin off into right now.
Yep.
Because remember early on when, like, we would stream, right, while playing. And that's now becoming a routine, which is very fun. But when we would stream while each other when we were playing, and there was this one part where I was just like, okay, so I can plan the rest of my day, and maybe it'll work out. And you were like, maybe hold on the planning, maybe it won't work out,
Yeah, I
right?
remember this.
And I regretted it in two loops. I regretted saying that the plan is going to work out in two loops, because that
Yeah.
is exactly how this is. That is exactly how this game pans out. You have to have a backup plan, and if you don't have a backup plan, you make one up on the way. You improvise, and I feel
Yep.
like that is so very Colt Van. It just works with his character.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think Colt. We can segue off of that into the protagonists over here. I'm gonna call Colt and Juliana both the protagonists in this case, because
Yes.
while she is essentially the antagonist of the game, she's not
Yeah.
an antagonist by story. I would say essentially, it's a very strange dynamic
Very
that they
great.
share in
Yeah.
in terms of the relationship between the two, and we'll probably get to that at a later point over here.
Get to that. Yeah.
But the essence really is that Colt is someone who is gritty, who's just a hungover dude figuring it out, gunning it in every time period of the day, and
Yeah.
literally piecing together the puzzle like he is piecing together his mind. And
Mm.
the way that's been delivered is just beautiful.
It's exceptional.
Props to the
It is.
props to the voice actor. I forgot his name incidentally. I think
Yeah,
it's
I don't.
Jason Kelly, if I'm not wrong. I'm not sure. I think it is.
Yeah.
But props to the
Prob-
voice actor. He did a fantastic job in really bringing Colt to life, which
Yeah.
probably would not have been an easy endeavor. I'm pretty sure.
Doesn't seem like it after
Doesn't seem like
listening
it, but
to
yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's the essence of it. That's really the essence of it. Oh man, where do you want to
Yep.
go from here,
It
Kedar?
is Jason Kelly, by the way. I
Jason
am
Kelly.
sort of
Yep.
looking it up.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is
I remember
Jason
Jason
Kelly.
Kelly from his Twitter handle. So yeah, shout out to Jason Kelly.
Yeah.
Very good voice
Who
acting.
got a PlayStation
Who
5
got a
from
PlayStation
Bethesda?
Prime for Bethesda? I am going to talk about in my conclusion. I'm going to bring this up. Remind me to bring this up in my conclusion for today.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yes. Yes.
All right, what do you want to talk about next?
I There is just so much to go over. I would like to say gameplay, but I feel like the gameplay is again, it's revisiting Arcane, like the traditional Arcane,
Yep,
because a lot of the powers and abilities that you get are, for lore
they're
reasons,
upcycled. They're
they're
upcycled
yeah,
versions
they're
of.
upcycled version. It's a polite way of saying recycled.
Yeah, I don't want to be rude to Arkane. Come on, they gave us a great game today.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And
uh,
and no, I feel like the situations they put you in, right? Like
yep,
having these specific abilities, there is a reason they've designed this game this way. It's it is they've considered every single layer of how a player would play the game. Like for example, when you pick something up, even when you're completely kitted out, right? You still have to leave something behind in most
yep,
cases.
yep.
So if you're planning it, if this is your first run, or even if it's a subsequent run where you're like, oh, I need carnesis, which is essentially telekinesis, and I think there was an ability like this in Prey, if I'm not wrong, or was it in
You are
Dishonored too?
actually correct. No. In Dishonored, you had the wind blast ability. Remember?
Yeah, the wind blast. Yeah,
So
this is kind of
essentially, this
that.
is a
It's a
modification of the wind
combination of
blast.
both.
It's a combination of the wind blast plus
Yeah.
probably
So
telekinesis.
that's the thing, right? Like abilities by themselves might not do everything that you want them to, but it feels like they've drip fed pieces of abilities from Dishonored and Prey into the abilities in this game.
Yep.
So you can sort of add, what are they called? Slab upgrades, essentially. The abilities are called slabs. So yeah, slab upgrades. And slab upgrades, again, they diversify your playstyle completely.
Very,
So
very, very
I
drastically.
feel like I feel like going back to the play your way thing, right? It
Yep.
it just it it makes you want to play differently. Subsequent loops as well. And not just for the trophies. Like I played, so this is what I wanted to say, right? Like I played an hour before we did the pod just to sort of refresh my memory. Not that it needed refreshing, I just wanted to go back. And
No,
and
any
I
excuse
did
is good
and
at
I
this point.
explored and I killed everyone in the mansion at the end. Okay. And I just waited. I went back to the entrance and I explored it every single way I possibly could. I gave myself an exit point, I gave myself an entry point, and I made sure I got there in using n number of routes.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked. And I'm still pretty sure I missed like 4 or 5
Yep.
or 12. I have no idea. It is just that well designed. And I went in with just two abilities. Neither of them was shift. I
Oh,
went in with Carnesis and I went in with Nexus.
I see.
Yeah. So it's just crowd control and blasting through, right?
Yep, yep.
And I couldn't reach the high places, but I still found my way through, and I still found the good stealth spots, and I still could make it through to the exit point that I had given myself.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, while there were no enemies stopping me, because all dead, it's just it is that it doesn't feel like one person. Of course, one person didn't sit down and do this, but it feels like every team that worked on each of these levels at each of these different times of day, they must have spent at least the last year perfecting it.
Oh, I am so certain.
At least a
I
year.
am glad in retrospect in that, in light of what you're saying, that they delayed the game. Because I'm sure that when it was
Yes.
scheduled for release in May, it would not have been able to deliver what it probably wanted to deliver.
Yeah.
So yeah, delay games, guys. Delay games if you think it's gonna give us a
Yeah.
better product. I'm
Of
okay with
course.
that.
Let's. Yeah. We don't
But
want
yeah,
a repeat of what happened last year.
yeah, we've had enough of that.
We've had way too much
We've
of
had
that.
way too much
And
of
I
that.
and I am glad, yeah, like you said, like I am very glad they delayed it. And I don't think like yeah, considering what you've just said, right? Like performance issues, yes, I did face a few.
Mm-hmm.
Not as bad as it is on PC, but few frame drops. I think I showed these to you when they were happening.
Yep, yep, yep.
Exiting, entering areas, the lighting can flicker a little bit. Lot of shadow
Especially if you've
glitches.
tried this on the 30 FPS
setting,
graphic
right?
enhanced
The
mode,
ray tracing.
the ray
Yeah.
tracing mode. It is a visual
Yeah.
spectacle, but I think I'm just spoiled now with 60 FPS, and I really can't play 30 FPS
Yeah.
anymore.
Also, like a slight trajectory here.
Uh-huh.
It just feels like a lot of the hardware today that people are using, right? Yeah, if you're watching a streamer or if you're watching a YouTuber who's probably not us, you, you will be looking at the most expensive hardware and the highest
Oh, no
degree
doubt
of
about it.
hardware,
Yep.
right? So they are not the comparison point,
Yep.
according to me. You can't compare your rig, or well, at least my rig, a commoner's rig, to theirs because they probably have sponsorships and they can afford it or whatnot. The age of RTX is still just a little bit away. Like where everyone can experience a game consistently to that level, I feel like that is still a mile away.
Yep.
We're
I agree.
getting there, we're getting there slowly, but it's gonna take a bit. Hardware is messing this game up. Like better hardware is messing this game. I'm pretty sure your 270 can run this better than a 370 can.
Yep. Yeah. I
So,
agree. In fact,
right?
incidentally, I did check with a couple of people who were having a 2070 card, and they claim that the
Right.
game works absolutely smooth, absolutely
Yep.
smooth.
It's just so
But
that's what I'm saying, right? So even if there is scope for visual fidelity and all that, I feel like video game enthusiasts themselves are sort of recognizing what's more important, and that's a very good thing. I feel like yes, while graphics are important and it's fine that a game looks really pretty and runs well as well, I feel like getting it to work as intended, heavy words, but yeah, I feel like that is way more important in this day and age.
Mhm.
And Deathloop does that perfectly fine with the performance mode. It's brilliant.
Oh,
I
performance
don't
mode
think.
is absolutely seamless. In the 60
Yeah,
FPS performance mode, none, no problems, no
no
problems,
problem. Very
nothing
great.
whatsoever.
I had
It
like
was just simple
two
smooth.
places I had frame drops and that's it.
Yeah,
That's and
yeah.
shadow glitch.
In fact, I saw like clipping, an instance of clipping just once, the entire game, like someone
Oh,
clipping into
yeah.
a wall. But besides that,
Yeah.
even the ragdoll physics, although they're comical, they're pretty good,
Yeah,
pretty
they're
good.
good.
They're pretty accurate ragdoll physics, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as accurate as they can be.
as accurate as they can be for ragdolls that are in the game right now.
I mean, when you pop someone's head off, don't
Uh,
expect them to ragdoll around.
well, that gruesome, but it's
Yeah.
actually comical in this case.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I really like it.
All
It's
right.
really evolved. Like it's the pieces of the puzzle, right? Like when you're at the end and you're trying to put them all together.
Yeah.
Yes, you can figure it out, but it is a linear story, and I think that's okay.
Oh, it's absolutely okay. I think I want to talk about the story bit for a moment
Story
over here
bit, right?
because
Yeah,
because
let's
it is
get
a
on.
very it's got its own pros, it's got its own cons, which I feel are important to highlight,
Yeah,
and it is something of it's worth talking about. I really love how, and again, this is in my opinion, this is another instance of a unique story building experience, a unique story experience that's been delivered to us through a video game, where I do not think, and I really believe that there is no way in which two individuals will experience the exact same sequence of events in the game up
yeah,
until the end loop, literally. So if I
yeah,
consider that the tutorial section is consistent for everyone, and if I consider the fact that the end loop is going to be consistent for everyone, barring these two, I would say 20% of the game, the 80% chunk in between is going to be unique for
yeah.
everyone. The experience is going to be completely unique. And when I say experience, I'm talking about the way they progress the story itself. And I call it, and I think this is what Arkane has really done right now. In the past, they've done the play your own way. Now they're like build your own story. You know, that's really what this game is all about. It's a very interesting.
Mm.
I mean, the play your own way is there. It's definitely still very much a
It's
part of the
still there.
Arkane
Yeah,
formula. But now they've added that layer of build your own story, build the narrative the way you want to. Now you're the puppet master pulling the strings. You aren't no
mm.
January in a PlayStation in a Talos space station that's telling you, okay, go from point A to point B to point C to point D.
Exactly. Yeah,
Now,
I want to spin off on that later. Yeah,
now
go on.
you can go to point D to point A to point F to point G to fucking around and doing nothing, and then come back
Yeah,
to point B and continue the story exactly where you left off.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think that's this whole build your own story concept is very unique. The story remains consistent, mind you, and we know that we
Yeah,
know for a matter of fact that there are only two or maybe three possible endings altogether.
yeah.
But the matter of the fact remains that I don't think that anyone will ever have an exact sequence of events that's going to be replicated with someone else in the same game.
Yeah. Very rarely.
And that's the funny part, right? Because we spoke about our own experience.
Yeah.
You went for Alexis right off the bat. Alexis
Right
is
off
one.
the bat. It
Alexis
just
is
happened accidentally.
Yeah. Alexis is that one visionary who is probably one of the he is being showcased the most in the trailers as well,
Trailers.
in the build up to the game, and
Yeah.
he is arguably one of the more exciting visionaries, and that's been portrayed in the game.
True.
And you went for him right off the bat, and
Yeah.
I had a completely different perspective. I had a completely different perspective where I was like,
Yeah.
you know what, they've shown enough of Alexis to me in the trailers. Fuck Alexis, let me see what else is in the game.
Yeah.
And I literally left Alexis for the last visionary for me to experience, and that was, and it was so hilarious because I did everything else and then went to Alexis, and you're like, Alexis done, now what else?
Yeah, like
And I'm
it
like,
was weird
wow.
for me because for me what happens is, like, you go to your apartment, Juliana come invaded me, I
Yep.
killed her. I don't know if it was an online player or if it was AI. I killed her, I got her slab. I'm like, oh, this lets me use Havoc. I don't know if it was Shift or Havoc. So it's Havoc, I guess. So I just went into the party because it said, oh, Alexis is on this map. I was like, okay, fine, let's see what he's all about. But I didn't observe. I popped the slab and I went in guns blazing. And if you show yourself too soon, Alexis pulls out his guns and starts shooting, right? I didn't let him show himself. I went guns blazing for a second, died once, reprised, went all the way up, turned off his beer tap, and that's when he showed himself. So I discovered a whole lot about Alexis without intentionally doing so,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then I think we spoke, and I was like, I think I just killed Alexis. Who's next? And you were like, oh wait, I didn't even get to Alexis yet.
Yeah, that was so funny. I was like, "What? And then in that instance, I was like, wait, you already got to Alexis, but you've barely played like
Anything
half the
I
time
hadn't
that I have
touched
played."
any map.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Like
I
I
was like,
hadn't
"Oh, so you
hadn't
just
gone to
went for him
Wenji,
straight
I hadn't
off."
gone to Igor. I didn't even know Igor was in the game until that point. Like I thought he was a distant dream whom you'll have to face in the end because he's the Eon founder and all
Oh
that jazz.
man, hilarious
It's
experience.
so weird for me, and like that's what that is what makes it so charming. I feel
Yep.
having that sense of freedom, right? And as I said earlier, I was going to spin off into a thought, and this is what it is. You and I had radically different experiences.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Radically
100%.
different experiences. And though the base narrative of the game is same, I don't get why most reviewers, some really obnoxious ones I won't name, we've spoken about this, are criticizing the game for a linear narrative. That is exactly what Dishonored had, Prey had, Death of the Outsider had, Dishonored 2 had. I mean, different endings doesn't make a game non-linear.
Yep.
Right?
So
Like, they
I think a
are
lot
still
of
linear narratives, and I feel like having that because they want to tell a story
I
at
think
the end of the day,
yeah.
right? Yeah, go on.
I think the perspective that people are missing over here is the fact that I think 95% of games are going to offer you a linear narrative regardless.
Yep.
And I don't know
Then
what the expectation was. Maybe they went in with a different expectation of the game itself,
yeah.
which I will attribute on part to Arkane because their marketing was quite ambiguous. And I think a little over the top. I wouldn't say cyberpunk levels of marketing, but it was a little excessive
Yeah.
to a certain extent,
It
at least
was.
towards the end.
Yeah. There were quite a few trailers, and
There were quite, and at one point we were like, okay, bus, that's enough. Just give us a game now, and we're
yeah. I think I just watched the first, reveal trailer, and then I didn't touch it. Like I was just like, I want to be surprised. I'm done.
done. So anyway, coming back to the point, which is
Yeah.
the perspective that games uh, don't need to be linear. I mean, they can be linear and still be exceptional. I think Arkane drives home that point pretty well over here. I don't know what the expectation or the general consensus was
Yeah.
as far as the negative reviews for the game are concerned.
Yeah.
But I don't get it. Personally, I don't get it yet because I had an absolute whale of a time. I think for me, the build your own story on top of as a secondary layer to the play your own way concept was enough for me to say, okay, you know what, linear story, who cares? It's giving me enough ways to play the game that I want to,
Yeah.
and it's got enough content regardless of it being just 4 maps in a sense.
Yep. I
So,
feel like that works. Also,
but yeah, to each their own,
it's
I guess.
yeah, no, it's also like I feel like in the No Clip documentary that we watched, right? The creative director, is he the creative director, lead director?
Yep,
Dinka
Dinga,
Bakaba.
Dinga, yep, Dinga Bakaba.
Yeah, he makes a pretty valid statement. Like he says, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it. Like there is not going to be any in between. And I have not seen a review that is in between. Not yet, at least.
No one on the fence. They're either like, oh wait, we played like
There,
2 hours and they're
yeah,
like, fuck
it's
this game, it's boring.
yeah. Also, I feel like people should temper their expectations. I think we spoke about this as well earlier,
Yep.
which is like people need to really temper their expectations when it comes to video games because we're in an age where video games are being pumped out faster and there is just a whole lot out there. So even if it is a quality piece of content, it is going to be missed by a ton of people. Just basic accessibility issues, affordability issues considered.
Yep.
It is also the system you play it on. It is also the just the type of game you're playing, right? It may be indie, it may be AAA, whatever. It is just everyone needs to temper their expectations because every process of development is different.
Yep.
And I feel like Deathloop hits the sweet spot when it comes to delivering on my expectations. I don't know about anybody else. This blew me out of the water. I am genuinely impressed.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. This is what I mean, that's the experience, right? And when we started sharing our notes, that's when it sort of hit me that, oh fuck, it's actually there's
Yeah.
a lot more to it than just what meets the eye. Everyone's having a different experience. We spoke
Yeah.
about Arush for a moment, who had a completely different experience, by the way. He went to Venji and he went to Igor and he did something else altogether. And
There you go.
he had a
Play
different
styles.
experience. I had a different experience. You had a different experience. Let's talk about play styles for a moment. I think I spent most of my game playing with just about Ether, Shift, and Nexus. I barely
Yeah.
used Havoc. I barely used Carnesis.
Hmm.
And I think you went in with Shift, Carnesis, not Carnesis,
And
Shift, Nexus,
Shift, Nexus, and Carnesis. Yeah.
Shift,
I
Nexus, and
barely
Carnesis.
used Havoc. I barely used Ether.
Yeah, I did.
I think I used
I
Ether just
rarely,
for the
I did
trophy.
not see you use Ether except for a trophy, incidentally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I
That's
mean, what else do you want from a game? It's, I mean, it's giving you so much already. Come on, guys. I mean, honestly,
Also, I'm pretty
that's-
sure you went in more stealth and I went more
Oh,
guns blazing.
I played. I would say 80% of the game. I would say 100% of the game in stealth except for trophies bit. I literally, and I think it is a little bit of Dishonored rubbing in over here when I
Yeah.
just enjoy playing these games in low chaos per
Stealth.
se. Yeah, in low
Yeah.
chaos.
No, I get it. And like stealth is my jam. I love stealth games. Like they're second to none. I mean, second to only
Yeah.
one. But Souls games have a
Souls
special
games
spot.
they have different stealth approach. They have a different approach.
But
to stealth.
yeah, but no, like when it comes to stealth games, I was like, this time I was like, I am not going to watch the trailers. I am going in completely unaware of what I'm going to face off against.
Mhm.
But the game gave me guns. So I'm like, let's do this a little different.
Yep.
Okay. I tried Dishonored 2, Death of the Outsider, Prey, all of those games in stealth. I'm like, wait. This has some really cool weapons with amazing animation.
Bring in the Mick
And
Gordon soundtrack.
beautiful, yeah, like beautiful, like sound design on each of these weapons. The
Yeah.
clinks from the shifty, whatever the thing, the heritage gun.
The
Oh my
heritage gun.
god,
Oof.
it sounds so good. Why
Sound
wouldn't
and
you shoot it?
and the triggers.
And the oh yes, how can we forget? I think we bring this up on every
On every
PlayStation
PlayStation
podcast.
game now, but yeah,
But
dual
yeah,
sense has
the
become a
triggers.
mainstay. It's become a
Oh
mainstay
my.
at this point.
Yeah, it's the quintessential 4D experience,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Like
100%, 100%,
as
100%.
4D as it can get.
So on that topic, on that note, right, which is I mean, the stealth versus how do you want to really play the game besides the way the game offers you the opportunity, right? I think with Deathloop they've finally found a way where the game doesn't excessively punish you for trying a different play style.
Yeah.
I think with Prey and with Dishonored there was still a lot of penalty levied on the player for being a little too
Dishonored 2,
trigger
I
happy.
would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for being trigger happy, there were a lot of penalties. I think like you could sense that if you go high chaos, if you're like just fuck everything, kill everything in your way,
Really makes you feel guilty at times.
it makes you feel guilty. But besides the guilt element coming to the picture, it makes the game a lot harder.
You
Uh,
also miss out on a lot of content. Like
you miss
no
a lot of
matter
the
if
content. Yeah, you miss a lot of
whatever
the
you
content.
choose, like if
Yeah.
you do low chaos, you miss out on all the high chaos books. Like
Yeah,
that.
you miss out on the adrenaline rush that a high chaos gameplay is going to give you essentially. The kick that you're going to get from this like absolutely committing genocide and this entirety of the map.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think with Deathloop, neither felt like it penalized me. I did not feel punished for playing stealth. In fact, I felt
yeah.
rewarded for playing stealth, and I was rewarded for playing guns blazing. Because God only
Yep.
knows, with those guns and with that, with those triggers and with those sounds, and with that soundtrack of rapid jazz playing in the background, what
Typical,
else do you
yeah, that,
need?
that
What do you
pumping
need?
jazz, is jazz,
What do you
just
need
so
besides that? It's just that good. And it did
yeah,
not punish me. I really, really want to appreciate this because uh, I think the lack of a morality system, which is what was landmark in Dishonored games,
mm,
did not feel like it was missed in Deathloop.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that this is down to the morality system of Dishonored, because I think that's a fantastic system for that specific game,
yeah, yeah,
because it does what it's supposed to do in that game. But
yeah.
the fact that you can play the game the way you want without being excessively punished for it, either way, is just
Yeah.
sensational. I think it's just, I just
I
love
feel
it.
like it's a lot more welcoming to new players as well.
New player experience, yep, new player experiences. It's almost like I remember when Deathloop came out and the early reviews were coming out and people were like, now that you've played Deathloop and go back and play Dishonored. For
Yeah,
those people who haven't yet experienced those games, because now I think people will be like, oh wow, this is what Arkane is really capable of. Let's see what they did in the past. And I
yeah,
will not be
yeah,
surprised to see if probably Dishonored and Prey sales have probably seen a little bit of a peak in the last
yeah,
1.5 2 weeks.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's entirely possible. Hell, I won't be surprised if they're like, "Hey guys, we're remastering Dishonored now with all the DLC, so pick it up for X amount of dollars." uh,
There goes my
yeah, that
fund. There goes my fund for, well, I
that's
don't
my
even have funds anymore. Anyways,
retirement fund.
retirement fund at this point. Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna dip into my retirement fund, my kids' college college fund.
Oh man, it's
Yeah,
hilarious. All right. So on that note,
yeah,
I want to talk about some of the drawbacks that the game presents to you as
yes.
a player.
Was just gonna get to that.
And I think that on the note that we were talking about, right, which is the fact that the game doesn't punish you for. And incidentally, this is something I want your take on because I'm a little polarized on this one, and we can segue this into sort of the inconveniences and the quirks in the game that we don't quite like as much. But
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
your take on the AI? Because I have heard a lot of polarizing takes on the AI, and in fact, I am polarized myself at this point because
yeah. It's
there have
yeah,
been instances where I feel like uh, if the AI was really good, like genuinely good, it would not have been
yeah,
as fun an experience as it is at present.
yeah.
But the
I
fact
share
that
that
the AI is
opinion.
dumb, the fact that the AI is dumb just makes you feel like, why is the AI so fucking dumb? Like, why aren't they challenging enough for
Exactly.
me? Like, I don't know if it's
It's
maybe it's a little too dumb. Maybe a little more challenge would have been a little better. But at the same time, I do feel that more challenge would have just taken something away from the game that it has it at present. So let me give an example over here, right?
yeah, yeah,
I'm trying to picture a hypothetical scenario where if the AI was slightly smarter, right, or if they were just better at what they were supposed to do in the game, which is protect the loop, would it have been too overwhelming considering invasions is a thing in the game, right? Because if I picture a scenario where if let's say you're swarmed by this hyper aggressive AI, or I wouldn't even say hyper aggressive AI, I'll just say let's just say aggressive AI that is really
yeah,
good at what's supposed to be doing, and an invader invades your map at that point of time, you're essentially fucked in that case,
yeah. Pretty much.
right?
There are a few instances where you're still fucked if that happens, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm a little polarized on the AI. I do feel that it's a little too dumb in my opinion. Like it's exceptionally dumb in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
Like it's almost comically dumb, and we have
Mhm.
no idea if that's really the intent. Honestly,
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
questions if whether or not like Arkane really intended it to be this dumb on purpose, because the aesthetic and the general vibe of the game, it almost feels like they fit in with the game itself, right? Where they're like extremely dumb ragdoll
or they're high,
NPCs.
or they're drunk, or
They're
they're
high or they're
hungover. It's
drunk or
just
they're hungover or they're sloshed or they're like smoked up on bonged up or whatever, but they're just there
it's
in
weird.
their minimal capacity to sort of try to prevent
They're
you from
just
doing what
there
you're supposed to be doing. Exactly.
because when you're going to live the same day over and over again,
Yep.
what fucking remains to be done?
But
Yeah,
yeah. So
it's
what's yeah.
yeah. So that's exactly what I was going to say, right? Like I feel like the AI is very inconsistent, but I feel like it is deliberately programmed to be inconsistent. Okay, and I'll tell you why. This is something I noticed. If you observe, every map is different in scale, verticality,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Whereas, and at different times as well, the same map can have a different effect. Okay. So the AI at in updown noon acts a particular way, and the AI at updown evening acts a particular way. Carlsbay morning afternoon is going to be sort of, I don't know if there's Carlsbay afternoon or evening. Yeah, there's a Carlsbay noon.
This is the
It's
Carl's
going
way
to be
now.
yeah, it's going to be slightly different, but in many cases it's similar. And I know this sounds like a very reductive and redundant direction that I'm going in, but I'll tell you one thing. Look at the map of Carlsbay. Okay, you have the hangars where you find Harriet, and you have the plain section. If you shoot everyone in the plain section with a loud gun, or if they find you, everyone from the ice part, like that snowy amusement park sort of section, is going to find you, but no one from behind will find you,
Yep.
right? And that's because it's a smaller map. So
Yep.
they have to contain the AI and not overwhelm you with every single. So even if it's a smaller map, right, they will not intentionally have your gun be so loud that the AI on the bridge across the hangar will be able to hear it, right? It feels like that. But when you're at the party, if you shoot on the ground level, people on the roof get alerted, and Igor starts to run,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So it
Yep.
feels like the AI radius or your presence, the radius of
That
Colt's
threshold is
presence
different.
is sort of yeah, it's sort of fine tuned to every time of day that you're at, right? And that is what it. So it may be deliberate, but it feels inconsistent to the player.
Yep.
But yeah, in to sort of summarize it, yeah, the AI is kind of doofy. Like there have been instances where I've snapped necks and it's fallen across like another enemy, and they've not even picked up on it.
They're
And
not
I've
even
just
bothered to like. They're just like, oh, they're on their own trip.
yeah. So
Really.
I've seen a lot of like not a lot, like maybe a couple of Reddit comments where it's just been like, oh, they wouldn't care because they'll just be alive the next day, and I'm like, that's a sad excuse. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense because regardless of that,
Because no,
yeah,
even narrative wise, right? Like they are here to stop Colt. So why wouldn't you fucking stop Colt?
stop cold. That's the job.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
it felt like a very
there
sad.
have been plenty of instances where I've just like stabbed someone in the back and or I've like hit someone on the head with a nail gun and they just like collapse into nothingness and the guy next to them is like,
Let me just fix this turret.
or they're just like smoking a cigarette and they're like,
Yeah,
whatever, who gives a fuck? It's pretty incon. And there have been instances where, mind you, I've felt like, how the fuck did they see me? It's practically impossible for them to have seen me in this instance.
yep, yep. Lot
So,
of lot of inconsistencies that way with AI.
yeah.
Sometimes instantly one person sees you, everyone on the map is
Everyone on the map
alerted.
is
Like
like
how
red exclamation mark, and I'm like, whoa, 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 calm down, calm down,
it's
hold on.
yeah, that was kind of baffling. And I think like from a gameplay perspective also, right? I think shift is the most inconsistent slab or ability
Oh
that you
yeah,
can get.
correct me if I'm wrong, but this has been the case even
It's
with
been the case
Dishonored.
every game.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
has been
it's not just me, right? Yeah, yeah. Because there
every
have been times
game.
when I've been like, even in Dishonored, I've made like, I mean, Dishonored fortunately had a quick save option, so I could, if I fuck up a blink, then I can just like F8 and go back into the game. But
Yeah, yeah,
but with this, there really is not one.
yeah.
So anyway,
It
but yeah.
does give you the option to quit out, but I don't know. It just feels like you have to play the whole thing. I don't see the lack of quick save. Like just
Oh
sort
no,
of
never
trajectory.
felt like the quick
I
save
don't
or the
feel like
lack
there
of
is a
a quick
lack
save
of.
thereof was a detriment to the gaming experience
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Initially, I was like, why doesn't this have a quick save? What if I lose all this progress? And then it explains to you like your progress is dependent on the loops.
And I think
Yep.
after a point when you become sort of semi overpowered, if not overpowered in the entirety of the game
Yeah.
itself, you don't give a fuck about things like trinkets and charms and whatnot. You just want to be like, oh hey, I
Enter the
died,
level,
cool, no
finish off in
problem.
3 minutes.
Main menu, come back, let's go again.
Yeah. Also, most like so the maps again, right? They're small and consistent, so it feels like you are meant to finish a map in 4 minutes or 5 minutes if you know what you're doing.
Yep.
Like the final loop, right? It doesn't expect you to waste time. It
Yep.
expects you to go kill target one, sabotage fireworks, get out. Go sabotage science, get out, go kill two targets, get out, go kill three targets. That's it. Like I know make it sound too easy,
No, but that's the
but,
essence of it, right?
but that is
By the
essentially
time
what
by the
it
time
is.
you do by the time you do that
Always
loop
the
over and over again, you will
yeah,
have reached a point where you're like, okay, you almost sort of memorize the route that you want to take to a large extent.
precisely. It is
And that's the joy of discovery, by the way, because you don't get to that point without doing a bit of discovery. You get to it
yeah,
gradually. It's what the game does. It offers you a solution, but getting from point A to point B off the solution itself is entirely your prerogative.
mhm, yeah. And I feel like that is where the whole play your way really
Shines
shines.
through. Yeah.
Really shines. Like I don't feel like it never felt like they took away player agency even once.
Never, never.
Like
I think it's entirely in your control.
yeah. Though there were like the one part where it pissed me off is like the slow opening of the doors. I know the game has to
Oh
load.
yeah,
Like I'm
that's
very,
like
very well
that's
aware of it.
yeah. I did feel a couple. There were those instances where I felt like why can't I just like I've already rendered this map before. Can I not like render it quicker and just like start the map? Like
Start
I get
fast.
it.
Like, I'm
I
okay
get
with
it.
the banter. Keep the banter up, but open the door faster, bro.
Yeah,
Like,
he's like that animation sequence where obviously because everyone's keypads are completely different, they don't show you actually dialing in the number on the keypad.
yeah,
Because they'll be like you'll turn like awkwardly to the right to open the door, but at the same time he's doing the keypad with the left because they can't show everyone's keypads because everyone has a different keypad.
different keypad number.
So
Yeah.
they're like that animation sequence. He slowly open the door. He walks into like this whole like this depraved tunnel or whatever. He pulls
And
out the
then his
guns
hands just comes up like
and the guns come up. Then Juliana says some cheesy dialogue. Cole says some cheesy dialogue back. And I'm like,
yeah,
all right, cool. Are you guys done with the banter? Can I move on with killing my eternalists now? Thank you so much. Then we go.
yeah. Love the banter.
Love the banter, no doubt about it.
Just not
I'm not
much.
going to take away from. And I don't think the banter even now has ever been repeated. By the way,
No, it stops at one point.
I have exhausted the banter. I will say that. I will say that I think after the end loop, the banter just ends abruptly. Like Juliana just stops talking.
Not really. So how it is depends on how many places you visited and how many times a day you visited it. And
Really, is it now?
yeah.
So
So
what
I have
happened?
exhausted all her dialogue in all of Up Down. I
Correct.
still get some fresh dialogue for Carlsbay noon and
Uh huh.
Where Frank is in freestyle in the morning. But that's soon to be exhausted. Like so
Ah.
there is yeah. There is a lot there is a lot of fresh dialogue. And after one point she's just going to be like, yeah, I don't have anything to say to you. That is like the most common line I think everyone will get at some point, and then the banter will stop. And that's worse because then you just have to sit for 3 seconds in the door opening cutscene.
Yeah, that's just it's like super awkward. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's.
At that time,
I think by the
I
time we
miss
were
you.
by the time we were trying to platinum the trophy, and I'm like, guys, come on, can we like move this along?
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, minor inconveniences. Yeah, that one.
yeah.
All right.
Speaking of minor inconveniences, the major inconvenience is fucking matchmaking.
Oh yeah, we need to talk about the matchmaking aspect of
We
this.
need to talk about how broken multiplayer is. And
Literally, because I don't think anyone's
how
going to be playing the game in like the next 24
yep,
hours.
I tried an hour before we started the podcast and it did not happen. I waited 7 minutes.
No matchmaking. There you
Seven
go.
minutes. Not a single match, not a single match. Uh,
I also
Getting
think.
invaded is easier than invading.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I also think that at this point, I feel that the reward for invading is not as good. It's just
Ne-
skins,
That
which
isn't.
incidentally you will hardly see the entirety of the game,
Yeah, you won't.
if
It's
at
just
all. I mean, the only thing that you'll
you
see
know.
is the gloves. That's it.
Yep.
So
There is no
it's kind of
yeah, like
pointless.
first person games with skins is just like
It's just like so silly,
I don't get
honestly.
it.
Yeah, it's just cool to look at in the loading screens, but that's essentially about it.
Yep. Still, I feel Redfall may or may not be in trouble, depending on again different
I am
info though.
apprehensive about Redfall. I will not lie, considering the
Yeah.
matchmaking in this one, because
Yeah.
I do feel that I mean, anything inherently that involves matchmaking is a commitment,
Yeah, it
whether
is.
it's a single player or a live service. And
Mm.
I think with that commitment comes a demand that the game delivers as expected and rewards you for you know committing to the experience of multiplayer. And if it doesn't, well, it's just going to die like pretty soon. I think the only reward really for multiplayer in Deathloop is the trophy. That's it, and that's only
Yeah.
exclusive to those people who want to hunt for the trophies. That's about it. If I was someone who would not give a fuck about the trophy, I'd be like, hey, who cares?
Mm.
Who wants to invade the game? Fuck it. Let's just move on.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think a lot of people will like who don't want to get the trophy might even do it.
Yeah,
And
it's
if they
just
have friends, like we did it, right? Like we just invaded each other, got rid of it, and then we're like, let's move on to other shit. Like,
yep, yep.
yeah, it just feels very
Yeah, it feels very. I like the. I will
threadbare to the
appreciate.
box.
I will
Yeah.
appreciate the fact that Arkane tried. They did try.
Yeah.
It is a very good concept. Again,
Yes.
conceptually, the multiplayer that they introduced in this game is quite unique.
Yeah.
But I think it was just asking too much of the game. Honestly.
Yeah. The thing is, when it works really well.
Oh
Like it's
yeah,
a lot of fun if it works.
and
But getting it to work,
there is also this whole sense, right? Because I think that's what I said, right? The whole uh, the concept is great because every time a player Juliana invaded me,
mm,
I was on the edge of my seat, which is I think what the intention of the game designers, the developers were.
yeah.
They really wanted to feel on edge when someone invades your game. That's the essence of an invasion mechanic in any single player game.
Mm.
And I think that happened very well. But there were also times when I was like, can I turn this off like properly because I don't want them to invade now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, a bit iffy on that one, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think conceptually very good mechanic,
Pretty solid. Yeah.
pretty solid mechanic. It did
The
bring
thought
about
was pretty
the
solid.
thought was pretty good. The execution is a little flawed, quite flawed, I would say.
Quite
But
solid.
ठीक है, that's just the way it is. We can't have everything in
Easy to
life.
overlook, very easy to overlook because
Yep.
you can just put it to friends only and even the AI won't invade you as much.
Yep, yep, yep. And well, the AI Juliana is pretty dumb too, so
Oh,
it just helps you get more residue if you want to.
horribly dumb. Like, I feel like dumber than most enemies
Dumber than
because she
dumber
walks
than the
into
Eternalist,
turret.
yeah. She'll
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like stand and she'll give away your position because she'll say some cringy dialogue. She'll be like,
yeah,
"Halt, I see you," and then she'll be like, "Ah, she's
yeah,
there,"
yeah.
and you're like, "Oh, cool, cool,
And
see
then
you."
she'll sometimes shoot at you, face the other way, and then slowly her gun will move the other way, and you'll be like, "I'm still here, dude.
I'm still
What
here.
the fuck?
What's wrong with you?
I'm still on your left. Why are you slowly moving your gun, shooting into nothingness ahead of you?" Like,
Oh man, it's hilarious.
the AI Juliana is very stupid.
Yeah, very very stupid. But hey, sometimes you need it when you want a trophy hunt. You need the AI Juliana.
Yep, yep, true.
All right. What else do you not like about the game?
Uh, long as tutorials, but I don't think that's not a big deal. I
Hmm.
don't think that's a big deal.
Not really a big. I think it's a. That's what I call it a minor inconvenience. I don't think I'll remember it.
It's just a minor. I
I'll
can look
forget about
past
it
it.
like in like a month or two once I'm done
Yeah,
with.
I can look past the looter shooter first hour of the game.
Yep.
Another major flaw, like I don't know, we'll get to the visionaries soon, but yeah, I don't think the enemies, the visionaries that you go after are all so well fleshed out, right? So you have a small cast of characters,
Hmm.
okay? And Arkane has done small casts of characters before. They did Prey, they did Dishonored, right? And I somehow feel like Dishonored 1, even 2, I feel like 2 did it better, but Dishonored 1 had a lot of isolated enemies, like the ones you work with who betray you. And oh, yeah, spoilers for Dishonored, by the way.
Hey, if you haven't
I
played
know.
Dishonored by now, you shouldn't be watching
Yeah,
this.
like what are you even watching
What are
this
you
for?
doing over here?
Oh,
Get the fuck out of this
play
podcast.
Dishonored 1.
Subscribe and
And
go.
like play Dishonored 1 regardless, okay? Like not
Yeah.
because you have to watch this podcast, but if you do play it, come back and watch this podcast.
Oh well. But yeah,
Yeah.
You're right. The isolated
But
characters.
you think about it, right? The twin are they two? I forget. The twins at the Golden Cat. The
The Pendleton twins. I remember. I remember. Can you believe that? I remember it
yeah, like Lady
because they were that
Boyle
memorable.
and her doppelganger. See, exactly, right? Like and her doppelgangers like that, and then Admiral, I forget his name, but yeah,
Havelock.
there's that Admiral Havelock,
Yep.
and then there's the bald guy who looks like that guy from Kick-Ass. I am bad with names. I don't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday,
Oh man.
so that's my
Yeah.
memory. But Dishonored 2 does the same thing, and it does it a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you Kirin Jindosh. It gives you Daud again in some respects with Death of the Outsider, and I feel and it gives you Delilah Copperspoon, and it gives you just so many other side characters. Then there's the Coven of Witches and their leader. It again, like, I don't want to derail too much, but
Mm-hmm.
their existence felt intentional. Their existence felt essential. Their existence felt like it was very integral to what you were doing, why you were doing it. Right? When you invade the university, uh, this is in the beginning of the game. I think this is either chapter 2 or 3 of Dishonored. You get why you're there,
Yep.
right? You know why you're doing crack in the slab.
Yep.
You realize when you sit and try to crack the fucking Jindosh lock, before you face off. Is it before or after? I think it's after you face off against Kirin Jindosh.
Yeah. After.
Not
After. Crack in the
after, right?
slab is like it's almost the end game. Nearly the end
Is
game.
that it is that posthumous fuck you that he's giving you. Like posthumous if you killed him,
Yeah.
but he's basically from beyond the grave. He's like, haha, fuck you. You know, it is straight up, and it is so fucking crazy, like how they've pulled this shit off, right?
Yep.
I felt this missing. This was missing that.
I
I
agree
felt
with
like
you.
a lot of like for example, Igor, okay, big brain, scientist guy, visionary to the truest form of the word, uh, truest definition of the word, leader or founder of Eon. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything about
The
him.
guy that's essentially responsible for you as a
He's
protagonist,
responsible.
essentially.
Exactly, right? And I don't know him. Like, it doesn't
You
feel like
barely get a glimpse into his personality. His personality, fine, we get a fair glimpse of that, but
yeah,
the character arc that precedes the game is probably what you don't get to.
motivation.
The motivation, the motive
Yeah,
that drives the character to be what they are
yeah,
and do
yeah.
what they do.
I I didn't feel that way with a lot of them. A lot of them. I feel like, yeah, Juliana, of course, of course.
Yeah, Juliana is the one
Um,
that probably is the most fleshed out in that regards,
yeah,
which probably makes sense as a protagonist or slash antagonist of the game.
antagonist game. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then probably, I think this would be better discussed on the
In the tier
next
list when
segment.
we do get to it, yeah,
Yes.
definitely. That makes sense. Makes
But
sense.
yeah, it's a few weak protagonists.
There is something left wanting in the.
Yeah,
They feel less like bosses and more like special
yeah.
NPCs. That's the way I'd put it.
And I think the last thing, which I won't spend too much time about, I do agree to some extent when people say, oh, there are way too many letters and audio logs and notes scribbled around. I don't have a problem with that,
Mm-hmm.
but I am not going to read all of them. Like, I just
Yeah,
know that.
yeah,
But
yeah.
here is what it is trying to do, and I respect it for that. It is trying to world build, that is one thing. And it is not trying to fall into the trap that Cyberpunk did. And
Mm-hmm.
Arkane is good at this. Like when I'm playing the game for the story, right? Or even Death Stranding for that matter, which you'll find out. I won't go into Death Stranding. But Cyberpunk has a lot of lingo. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this is the cyber deck and this is your you are
Brain
this
dance and this
corpo,
and
this is
that.
brain
Yeah,
dance. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't give one fucking ounce of a shit. You tell me what I have to do. Okay. What is
yeah.
the point of me doing this? Okay. I don't give a shit about your lingo, your wires, your whatever they're called. And this one doesn't do it. The plot is very straightforward. You know what's going on. If you want more information, feel free to
Feel free
browse.
to browse at your own
Okay.
leisure.
I get that. But there are times you're going to miss a lot of these things because they're not well highlighted.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and that brings me to what the point I was trying to make. Accessibility. It is terrible is not the word.
Non-existent. I would just say it's
It is
non-existent at
not.
this point. Yeah,
It is bad. It is bad, bad, bad. This
yeah,
game
yeah,
really needs accessibility.
yeah. It's
ASAP.
it's a it's a shame because I feel that this is something that everyone should get to experience at some point. It's one
Absolutely.
of those games, where you feel like, man, everyone should be able to play this game at some point. And it's
Yeah.
funny because the game is going to be accessible on PlayStation and Xbox at some point. But that's
Right?
the extent of the accessibility, honestly.
It just I,
Ironically.
it just feels like they could have done a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I get that the game was delayed, but I hope they implement it at least as an
At some
afterthought.
point. At some point. Oh, that's the hope. I do believe that Arkane will have thought about this at some point, but probably they just felt that it's just not implementable in the time frame that's been afforded to them. So they
Mm.
were like, hey
Okay.
guys, let's just it sucks, but what can we do? And that's the
Yep,
benefit
yep.
of doubt, I guess, we'll have to give them.
They should patch it in though. I
They
just
should
feel
patch
like
it
they
in,
should
definitely. I
patch it.
agree that they should, in whatever time frame that they can, they should definitely be
Absolutely.
able to patch that whole component into the game itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I think the flaws are pretty much summed up, Kedar, because I
Yep.
think we are pretty aligned on the flaws as well.
Aligned on that.
Yeah, we're pretty sorted on that. I don't think we need to really harp much on that. I
Mm.
think we can jump straight into our tier list. What do you think?
The best part of the show.
All right, let's
This is
go for it.
dessert.
Let's go for it. This is the dessert component of the entire podcast. So here we have a tier list. Tier list number 2. We did the Demon Souls tier list last time out. Today
Which
we
I think
have.
we have to share.
Uh, oh, I haven't shared my screen, right?
I don't see it yet.
Okay, so you're going to see it in the output end of the day, regardless. But
Okay,
I've got your S, A, B, C, D tiers.
great.
So your 5 tiers, and I've got the
Right.
8 visionaries.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, in fact, hold on. Let me just do one. Let me probably just share this link with you. You
Yeah, yeah. I
might
was
be,
just going to
maybe you can just
yeah.
see the link. You might just be able to see it. I'm going to drop it on our chat.
Yes, great.
There you go. And I'm going to come back to OBS. Oops. Where were we? Here we are.
Perfect.
You can see the tier list, right? On the link?
Yeah, I can. Yeah,
You
that's
can?
perfect. Actually.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think
yeah.
if I don't think it's gonna adjust as I do it, but hey, at least you have
No.
something in front of you.
I'll just do make the same moves.
I didn't think of that. I'm stupid. All right,
Yeah.
let's jump into it, my friend.
Yes.
We have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, D tier, and we have
Yep.
our 8 visionaries uh,
Yeah.
that have populated this game.
Yep.
So let's determine criteria first. I think that it's going to be a little different because, as far as challenge is concerned, Demon Souls was well. Demon Souls had challenge difficulty as one of the most important components. I think we'll have to do
Yeah.
something slightly
Oh,
different with Deathloop
yeah.
because
Yeah.
the challenge is pretty much consistent across the board. I think that's at least been my experience. But
No, it has. Yeah.
let's say we do this on the basis of character personality building plus to some
Okay.
extent challenge uh,
Yep.
to level design, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to add something else beyond that, feel free.
Yeah, I guess like let's wing this one. It just feels like there are a lot of instances in which you encounter these guys and you
And
know
I will not be surprised if we have very because I think Demon Souls we were quite in sync.
still aligned. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
This is
This
going to be
one might be
interesting.
like,
I have no idea what you think of what character in this case.
yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's jump into it. Let's start with the wolf guy, the guy at the
Oh,
party, Alexis Dorsey. What do you think about this guy?
I really want to say A, but I'll go with B. I really, really want to say A
All
because
right.
easily one of my favorite visionaries.
Uh-huh.
Just because he's such a nonchalant asshole about everything. He's unabashedly honest and terrifying
Yep.
because unpredictable. He's unhinged.
Yep. Yep.
Other words that begin with un and stand for bad shit. That is Alex. There isn't a good thing you can say about him, but he's. I don't want to say this loosely because we're being recorded,
Mm-hmm.
but he's like the Joker of the bunch, you know.
Oh.
And I don't.
Ooh. Okay,
It's a
hot
very,
take.
it's a very, it's a very radical thing to say,
Uh-huh.
and we may not entirely mean what it means,
Yeah.
but he's unhinged, I want to say, and he has a personality that you can pick up on if you explore his room and his mini com, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the conversations he has with other characters. He is like he's unhinged and crazy, but he's also like fuck
He's
you, I'm
like
the
he's
richest
like he's like
fucker
Joker.
alive.
He's like Joker meets Batman because he's that fucking rich, and at the
Yeah,
same time he's like Joker without Harley Quinn. Really.
he's just psycho. He's just crazy.
Yep.
He's
He's
he has
demented. He's lost
he's
it.
demented to his very core, and he's also funny. Like he's just crazy
Yeah,
funny.
he's the funny guy. He's the rich, obnoxious douchebag who's like super
Yeah,
hilarious in his
he's
own right.
Logan Paul.
He's
That's who.
Logan Paul. Yeah, yeah, that's who he is. All right, Kedar, what's your final vote? Where do you want to place this guy?
I'm gonna put him on B.
You're going to put
Yeah.
him on B? Okay. I
Yeah.
was actually going to put him on S tier. So I'm
Oh.
going to go ahead and say that let's put him on A tier because that's the middle ground in that case.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Perfect.
let's
Perfect.
put Alexis in
I
A
don't know.
tier.
I said all nice things about him. I still put him at B.
So here is why, in my opinion, Alexis is S tier, right? Because uh, of all the characters that I've explored in the game, and I've done
Mhm.
a fair bit of that in the entirety of the game, I found Alexis the most fleshed out apart from Juliana.
Yeah, that is true.
Overall, like he's the most fleshed out character. And I'm going to talk about a couple of other characters which are intriguing but not as fleshed out. And I would probably want to
Yeah.
maybe at some point dive back into Deathloop and maybe investigate more about the characters themselves, which is incidentally something that the game does very well. It makes you want to learn more about the characters.
Yep.
But from
Agreed.
whatever I've seen in the game itself, Alexis is the most like everything builds up to Alexis. That's what I love about Alexis, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's the penultimate moment in the game if you play the game beyond the end loop, which is it's his party where everything is like concluded and then you go to the final instance of the game and it's like everything is building up to that moment in that game, the party, the ultimate party where you're either in or you're out,
Yep.
and the whole uh, the lovely stand-up comedy that happens in his brilliant mansion. Yeah, can't miss that.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like A. A is fine. A is fine.
Okay, great. Charlie Montag.
Oh, Charlie fucking Mon-
Charlie fucking Montag. My bad.
Uh, I again, I'm not sure. B or A.
I have a
B.
I have a very hot take for this guy as well.
He's a fucking man-child, man. He's unlikable to his very core. He's so unlikable, but that is what makes him integral, like very integral to what the visionaries as such, right?
Yep.
Like if you think about it, like if you put all the visionaries up against each other, you want. Oh, also, I don't think Wenji's on this list.
Is
Just
she
saying.
not in the list? Oh, hold on. You're right. You're actually correct. Let me just add her to this list
Yeah,
because.
but meanwhile, if you look at all the characters we have here, right,
Uh
in
huh.
front of us, I would say each and every one of them, besides like two,
Uh huh.
are integral to
Okay.
the visionaries.
Right.
Okay, Charlie and his version of what, like, let's not be rude here, but yeah, she is his Harley Quinn to some extent. Fia
Fia.
is it's just uh, I don't know. It just felt like why would these people be picked as visionaries?
Yep.
You know? It's like who smoked what on the day? Did you pick it out of like a lucky ballot or something? Because Alexis
Oh
is
man.
rich, okay. Frank is influential. Igor, it was his idea, okay. Harriet can keep people in control, and Juliana is just we'll get to
She's
that
like,
later,
yep. Yep.
right? Like, but and Wenji is the scientist. She's the brains behind the entire operation. With Igor, who is also kind of the brains, the bigger brains behind the operation. It just feels like these two are like those kids who get admission because their aunt has a contact or something.
All
Feels
right.
like that.
So, since you're on that topic, since you're on that very important topic, uh, I think Charlie is. So, what's your final ranking for Charlie?
Oh,
Let's
I
go for
I
that.
would say I'd actually go B.
Okay. I'm going to go Charlie S tier as well. You know why?
Oh, nice,
You know
nice.
why?
Okay.
Because Charlie is the reason the whole intercom system exists, the whole minicom system exists. He is
Yeah.
actually the tech guy in the entire group. Like, although Venji is a scientist, Igor is like the super scientist or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Charlie is the guy that's responsible for everything
For
tech, for
all the
all the tech
security
that
as
you
well.
see in this entire game.
Yeah.
Essentially, the entire game,
Yeah.
including the delivery system, if I'm not
Yeah.
wrong, including
Yeah.
the turrets and the sensory surveillance cameras.
Yeah. Yeah. All the tech is his.
2-bit, which by and of itself is probably one of the most enjoyable NPCs outside the Visionaries.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's just hilarious. And Charlie as a person, for two reasons. One, because his personality is just absolute cringe fest.
Yeah.
and it's deplorable, but it makes you laugh to no end.
Hmm.
He's probably the only guy who's like scared of you in the entire game, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I think all the other visionaries would like face you
No
hands
one is
on,
scared of you.
like
Yeah.
they would face you in a battle.
Yeah,
But
yeah. All of
Charlie
them do.
fucking guns it. He books it. The moment he knows you're in the vicinity, he fucking bolts like a rabbit. And I love that. I
Even his
love it.
ability is essentially that,
It
right? Like,
is that. It is just like shift from point A to point B. Like, see you
yeah.
later. Toodaloo. Off I
Yeah.
go. Uh, I just love Charlie. I think
S tier. I
S
think
tier.
that's a good take. That's a very good take,
I'm
actually.
gonna put Charlie on S tier in my opinion because he's just there are these characters in like shows and movies that the moment you encounter them you have a very strong sentiment to them, like for
Yeah.
them. I think Charlie did that for me in Deathloop. That the
I
moment
think you changed my opinion on that successfully.
because he's such a fucking man child, man. He's such a fucking man
Yeah,
child.
like I just find people like that obnoxious. So that
Yeah.
might be
And I think he
it's
does it
very
he
hard.
does it very well, which is a testament again to the voice actor. I have no idea who Charlie's voice actor is, but
Yeah.
the performance that Charlie has been able to deliver in the game is just
Incredible.
sensational.
Incredible. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sensational. So what do you want to do? S or
All
A?
the order. Let's go with S. I feel like you've changed my mind about Charlie.
All right, Charlie, my friend. You
Maybe he got the
have.
wrong invite, but yeah, I get that.
All right, Charlie, my friend. You are now successfully on board. All right. Next, we go to Sir Igor Serling, as we call him.
Ooh,
And I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to call him C tier.
I agree. I would go as low as D.
All right. Okay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't
And
mind dumping him in D. The only reason
yeah,
I probably place him in C is because his slab was pretty fucking critical to my gameplay.
that's a fair point. That's a fair
But yeah, but besides that, Igor, he demands a lot of like. I think he's one of the more intriguing characters in the game, but that's left to be unexplored for me. And there is one more that supersedes him in my opinion, but I'm not going to like talk about that right now.
Mm.
But yeah, but Igor is left wanting on a lot of fronts in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree largely. It just feels like uh for someone who is behind the entire thing, right?
Hmm.
Who basically conceptualized Eon, we see only one side of him.
Yeah.
And one side that is fed to us in a very half-assed with a very half-assed approach. Like it would have been interesting for him to encounter or you to encounter him and have a bit of a dialogue. Maybe he taunts you or something. Maybe he says some shit like, "Oh, we used to be friends," and yada
Hmm.
yada yada. Because it is their move, right? It's Colt and
Eon,
Igor
and Igor, who started the entire
who
program.
who
Yeah.
start the entire thing, and that's something we find out later, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it keeps these plates spinning, but it doesn't know when to let them come crashing down.
Hmm.
And I feel like they really missed the mark on that. Igor, very intriguing on on paper, quite literally,
Yep.
but I don't know who he is. So
Yep. Yep. Very little personality building as far as Igor is concerned. I agree. And I'm going to go so far as to say that the power enough does not warrant a C tier, and I'm going
yeah,
to dump
yeah.
him in the D. Let's go with
Mm,
D for Igor.
let's go with D.
All
All
right,
right.
our local meth head slash pot head, Fia.
Wow.
Yeah, she is that. I mean, there's no denying it. She's that.
She is the nuclear expert.
She's the nuclear expert, and she's always high
Also, I and painting.
and painting.
Not very good paintings, but
Classic
yeah,
artist,
painting.
stereotype X10.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think of
uh,
our beloved Fia?
C or B. Not very clear on where.
Okay.
But and I don't
I'm
have a really good backing for this.
I'm
It's
I'm
just
gonna
like
go.
again,
I'm
I
gonna
don't
say
know where.
C as well. I'm gonna say C as well because, again, with Fia, there's very little that's been explained, or maybe we have just missed that aspect of Fia altogether. But I
Possible.
think her character story, her story development has been pretty non-existent, I would say.
Yeah.
What I do like about Fia that probably warrants a better slot than Igor is the fact that she's a fucking menace if you face her head on.
Yeah. She is
Because
incredibly
the
challenging.
moment she pops havoc,
Mm,
it is absolutely difficult for you to kill her. Like it is a pain to kill her,
yeah. Yeah.
unless you do it the stealth way, of course. It's a different.
And also, like this is what I was saying before we started the tier list, right? There is no one way to rank Fia. I would just say Fia
Yep.
is because if you face off against her in the nuclear reactor, good luck.
Good. That's it. Your game's done.
Good luck getting out of there. You are not making it out unless you make it to the exit.
Yep.
You're not. It's done. Uh, yeah, I don't think you get a reprise if you die to her in the nuclear
You
reactor.
don't. You die in the nuclear reactor. She blows up the island. Essentially, that's what I read.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
essentially blows up the whole fucking island. She's like, "Fuck this game. I'm out."
yeah. So should ideally break the loop, but okay, let's
But
not.
it breaks the universe. So fuck that. That's a discussion for another day, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
yeah,
let's.
right. Like and to add, Fia, the one thing that makes me put her on C instead of D is that we know what her relationship with Charlie is.
Yep. 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 Which is by and of itself a little more like it builds a lot more character in by and of
Yeah,
itself, right? Like the fact that she's
yeah.
in a relationship, she has those emotions and associations with someone else
Which
in the game. It
exactly,
just adds
and
some more it adds some more flesh to the bone essentially.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Let's go with
Frank.
the rocker boy of the group, Frank.
Uh, I would go C. What about you?
I would go with B for Frank, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay.
in my opinion, Frank is probably the most intriguing character of the lot,
I agree.
simply by virtue of the fact that he doesn't use a slab,
Mm.
and there is so much left wanting. That there is this so much mystique. Incidentally, with Frank, and I'm going to tell you this very interesting story. I have only killed Frank once the entire game.
Mm.
Like I have not encountered him beyond that one instance where you were to like get the leads from him and then move
Yeah.
on from there.
Mm.
He's also the only visionary that dies off camera in the entire loop. There are a lot of these
Right.
unique there are a lot of these unique elements about Frank. The fact that he probably there are some, I don't know if you're aware of this, but there are insinuations that he had a sexual relationship with Colt, by the way.
I did not pick on that.
Yep, there are
And
some
pick on.
insinuations of this in the lore in certain instances. Uh, there is and it's very evident that they were very good friends apparently. Colt and
Ah,
Frank, they were
yeah,
very good
that
friends.
I know.
That is
Yeah,
very
yeah.
apparent. But the whole sexual relationship aspect of it was something that caught me off guard, by the way.
Okay.
Uh, but with Frank, there's so much mystique and intrigue, And of
Yeah.
course, I think Frank has the most unique level design in that sense. The
Mm.
fact that he essentially invokes the there was, I think there's been a similar, I think the crack in the slab, yeah, what am I talking about? Crack in the slab is one level where you can't use powers, remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very good throwback to crack in the slab for me.
It is. It is then. Yeah. I
I mean,
agree.
of course, that's assuming that you go in the way the game wants you to, that is without
Yeah.
a slab. But if you're able to break that, well, you can, and you can do
Yeah. You
that.
can.
You
Can
can go
actually
in.
do
You
that.
can you can
Pretty
find
fun
a
to do that.
you can find that is one of the best parts about Frank's level, which was, finding out the fact that, oh fuck, this guy disabled your slab entirely, and
Yeah.
then deciding that, hey, you know what, I need to find a way in where I can sneak in with my snaps, because there's a trophy for that, by the way. There's a trophy for killing him with a slab.
Yep.
So you do know that there is something that is there about this whole clubhouse that he's built on Freestad Rock that
It
demands
is
exploration, essentially.
very interesting. Yeah. Like, like I knew a lot of what you just said, but I didn't know about his relationship with Colt. And I feel like that added layer of storytelling that just comes from either notes or voice logs, right? That if there was a little less of that, if like give me a standoff against all the visionaries, right? Like it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be, it can just be a cordial conversation, or it can be a taunt where, Charlie walks up in front of you, says something sneaky, snide, and just shifts away, like Juliana does in the opening and much later as well.
Hmm.
It's, I would have loved that with any of these people or all of these people, you know because like Dishonored did that. You spoke to Kirin Jindosh at his mansion before you cracked the whole thing open,
Yep.
right? And it felt like you know whom you're facing off against. You're like, fuck, this guy is intimidating. You
Hmm.
get a glimpse of who they are, and it's so well written, right? I feel like that writing could be
A lot
done like
stronger. A lot of it is left wanting with
it could
Frank.
have been
Yep.
done a lot, and like it could have been done tenfold and a lot better here. But yeah, I feel like Frank on B is perfect.
Yeah,
in that case.
he's the middle ground. You know, he's literally the
He's the
middle
middle
ground
ground.
with
Yeah,
all these visionaries that are in the fray.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right, let's keep you there, Frank.
I hope there's DLC. I really hope there's some
I
DLC.
really hope there is. I really hope. You never know. Maybe the DLC for Deathloop could be you play one of the visionaries.
Yeah,
You never know because
maybe.
they did that with Dishonored. They made you play the antagonist of Dishonored One in the DLCs.
Yeah, yep.
So you never know.
I really like that.
There probably is room for that at some point.
Mm.
All right, we come to the life coach of the entire group,
The great cultist who
the
doesn't.
great cultist, Harriet.
Yeah, I don't like Harriet. I mean, I feel like she's just there most of the time.
Yeah, like pretty
Where
much,
would you
pretty
put her?
much anyone who does a sermon that's like evoking or creating an entire cult.
Mm.
Yeah, I think she's got a very one-dimensional vanilla personality,
Yeah,
which considering the game spoils me with so many other dynamic personalities. Uh, Harriet is a little flat. I wouldn't say flat. I think she's designed that way on purpose, and
mm.
that's absolutely fine. But
Mm.
not, and she's the. I mean, she barely has the loop because you have to offer before the day
Offering and
essentially
offering. Yeah,
the day essentially begins.
yeah,
But yeah, I think she's pretty standard. I think she's pretty vanilla as far as uh, an antagonist in the
yeah.
game is concerned. So I'm not very fond of her personally.
Mm.
I do have. I will give her credit for the implications of the events surrounding her. So
Yeah,
you kill her before she kills Amador, and then something else happens, and then something else happens, and
yeah.
all that is all pretty fun in games. But besides that, she's pretty vanilla as far as I'm concerned.
Mm. Mm. I
So,
would like to point out one thing.
hmm
The lore implication, which is not really set in stone, but she is kind of trying to contact the outsider.
yep.
I feel like that is the only thing that interested me.
That's her saving grace, I would say, because she's doing something that's in the occult's art.
Also, it's like that bias, man. It's like I just want something to connect the dots.
Yeah, it's just she's just she's a very meh. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. All right, I would like to put Harriet on D along with Igor.
Yeah, I agree. I was torn between C and D, but C is just a lore implication that we're just hanging on to by threads.
Yep. All right, we're going to assume that Harriet is also Wenji.
Okay, let's do that. Harriet is
Now,
also Wenji now.
Harriet is also Wenji. Where would you place Wenji?
I would place Wenji at B.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a very interesting, and I feel like you should figure this out. Like, not figure it out, but listen to it yourself. There is a very interesting conversation she has with Igor when they're on the roof. I
hmm
think you've already probably definitely heard.
I've already heard
Yeah.
this one.
I feel like that sort of
So,
discussion,
so,
right?
so, are we talking about the same instance where Harriet and Venji, sorry, Venji and Igor are sort of talking on the roof of Alexis's party, and if you
Yes.
just observe them from a distance, they sort of get into a scuffle,
Yes.
and she pushes them off the roof. That's the one we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Yep. I've heard that instance. Yep. There is
It is.
there
There
is a
is so
lot more.
much
She's like the class nerd. You know what I'm saying? But
precisely.
not like the Charlie Montag lost it man child nerd.
No. She's a little more
She's a disciplined
grounded.
nerd. She's a disciplined
Yeah.
nerd in the group.
Also, getting to her and exploring her bunker, right? Like her
Oh,
experiment, rather,
so
retrieving the residue.
I'm going to go ahead and say this. Venji's like death moments, like when I
Yeah.
tried to kill her in the bunker for the first time, it was one of the most what the fuck moments for me
Yeah.
in the game because
Likewise.
incidentally, Venji was the first one that I went to
Okay.
because I was like, okay, you know what, residue, because I knew that residue is crucial to the game's progression system, and I'm going to do that before I do any other visionaries. I just went the vanilla way in that sense,
Okay.
and I went to Venji's lab, I killed her, and
Mm-hmm.
then I just like the game like throws these markers at you. Venji question mark, Venji question mark, Venji question mark,
Yeah.
and there are like three there in that bunker. There are three in that bunker. There are two in that bunker, and there's like two above you on the same floor. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck just happened? What has the game done? Did it break? Did I break the game? And then I'm
Yeah.
like, holy fuck, she's doing this weird psychotic experiment where she's able to like essentially transcend time and create copies of herself, and she uses those copies of herself to essentially keep the loop intact, which is a very, it's a very, 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 very interesting uh, mindfuck moment for me. And I was like, wow, that's just that
I
gave me a window into the whole into the entirety of the visionaries, and I knew at that point that every visionary is going to offer something that's going to be
Mm,
slightly unique to a certain extent.
yeah, yeah. It did feel very what the fuck, like you said, right? Like
Yep.
it's you don't expect it. And I went to Venji, I think second after Alexis
Hmm.
because I was just like, now I need to play the quest. Let's just finish the story. And it was just I did not know that there would be more than one. I did not
That's
know
what.
who Venji was, and I just walked in and I was like, wait, there's three of them. So I was like, okay, that's fine. You could make two doppelgangers in Dishonored 2. Maybe this is that a power or something like that. Turns out no, there's like 15 of
It's all science, no supernatural here.
yeah, and it's just and she's such a good planner, right? There are codes that change every day. Like there is a note which is like it doesn't matter what loop you're in, the code for this is going to change every day. So make sure you take note of it before or after you
Yep,
come to
yep.
work,
I love
essentially.
it. I love that
It
aspect of
is
Benji.
she is just so meticulous with all her planning, right? Like she has covered all stops. So much so that if you get spotted in her depressurization chamber, you fucking die there.
Yep,
And she
you
is
get
not afraid.
depressurized.
And she's not afraid of killing her clones.
Yep, she's
it
ruthless.
requires it requires a certain amount of commitment to do that, I would assume.
Yep.
She's very
I
intriguing. I
mean, that's
really like
by and
Benji.
of itself, that's like a backup plan. Like, if something goes wrong, the clones will take over.
It's just I I don't know. It's just very, very, very intriguing.
You know,
I feel like
it's
just as
with
intriguing as Frank, if not
With
more.
Venji, it's like that moment in that movie, the Nolan movie. Which movie is that? Fuck, the magic one. Fuck,
Oh,
what's the name?
Prestige.
Prestige. It's like the
Yeah.
Prestige. Like, oh, she's gone from one place, but then she pops up in like 10 other places, and I'm like, huh, what?
But I just killed you there.
But that's her Prestige moment. But yeah, that's really the essence of it. All right. So where do you place Venji? Finally.
I would say B.
All right. We are going to assume that Venji is Harriet or Harriet is Venji,
Yeah.
and we're going to move her to B.
Yep.
All right. I agree with you on this one, by the way. I agree with you that
Yep.
Venji is deserving of a spot in the B tier list.
Yeah. She's just as interesting.
Which leaves us
Do we even need to discuss this?
with Juliana.
S tier for me.
All right.
I will put her.
Let's just move over there. And while I do that, why do you think Juliana is S tier?
Oh, most fleshed out, most dynamic, most reasonable also in many aspects. Especially the ending. Just her presence is what makes Deathloop Deathloop. You
Yep.
know, to replace her with any of the other visionaries, and I don't think it would have worked.
Nope. I agree.
You needed that
Hard agree.
exact. You needed that exact person in that exact with that exact demeanor. Hunting you down, keeping you on edge.
Yep.
Quipping at you, fun banter, trying to reason with you a lot of the times, being cheeky, making jokes at you, letting you make jokes at her. It just felt so organic and so I don't think this game has done any character better than Juliana. I
Yep.
think
I agree.
Juliana's the
I
best
agree.
character
I
in the
hard
game.
agree. I hard agree. Hard agree. I think the fact that Juliana and Colt, and that's how they sold the game, right? Juliana versus Colt. That's really how they sold the game.
Yeah.
And I think
Good
those
move.
characters have been done absolute justice. Absolute justice.
Absolute justice.
And yeah,
Really.
I completely agree with you. Juliana was, every level, I would ask the question. Like in my own mind, I would ask the question, what if Juliana shows up?
Yeah.
That was my biggest like apprehension, and at the same time, it was the biggest factor of excitement in the game. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, if this woman shows up, I'm going to farm her, or I'm going to like do this or that or that.
Yeah.
Sensational,
Yeah.
sensational character building, very good backstory,
Absolutely.
very fleshed out, very well thought through, fantastically voice acted, no doubt about it. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and
Of course.
I could be wrong, but I believe it's her debut role. I could be wrong. I know it's her debut role for Colt, I think, as far as I'm aware,
Okay.
with
I'm
Jason
not sure.
Kelly, and I don't,
Yeah.
I can't recollect Juliana's voice actor's name. It
Mm-hmm.
starts with O, but I've forgotten her name entirely. But
So do I,
but
unfortunately.
her personality and her voice and her
Oh,
modulation
best,
is just
best,
sensational.
best.
And I
I
really
don't
really
think.
really I really want to I really want her to voice a Harley Quinn someday. That's really the kind of voice acting she's able
Uh,
to deliver.
yeah.
But yeah, crazy
Very,
good.
very versatile in even though she just played one character. It's
Yep.
so good. So good. So natural. Amazing. Yeah.
All right, so there you have it.
Wait,
Deathloop.
we forgot the ninth visionary.
You want to talk about Colt?
Let's talk about code just
All
for
right,
like a few minutes.
all right.
Uh, Out of Arkane's protagonists,
Interesting.
second best.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Who's the best in
second
that
best.
case?
Emily is the best.
Whoo.
I know. No one's
Okay.
gonna agree. I
I
love Corvo. I
I
love, love,
so
love
so
Corvo.
here's the thing, right? Here's the thing.
Yeah.
I am, and this is, by the way, with the entirety of the Arcane like
Yeah.
studio itself, right?
Yeah.
I have, and I'm really trying to do this, but I've not been able to. I have
Okay.
no way in which I can like rank protagonists across games and rank games, for that matter of fact. Because
I get that.
barring Death of the Outsider, which I believe is probably the least,
Weakest.
it's the weakest of the entire repertoire. Let's not faff about that. But
Yeah.
besides that, if I have to consider Dishonored 1, I'm just going to talk about like the modern ones because those are the games I've played, right?
Yeah.
Dishonored 2, Prey, and Deathloop. I'm just going to
Hmm.
consider these four games.
Okay.
Between these four games, I have absolutely no idea how to rank the games anymore. None.
I get that.
I have no way in which I can rank these games.
Totally get it.
Because at every instance of each of these Arcane games, I've felt, fuck, this is a great game. Fuck, this is a great game.
Yeah.
Fuck, this is a great game. Fuck,
Yeah.
Corvo's
Yeah.
kick ass. Fuck, Emily's kick ass. Fuck, Morgan is kick ass. Fuck, Colt is kick ass. I have nothing. Like, I am so lost with where do I place these guys on a scale or on a ranking or a rating. But
Yeah. I
that's just
feel it.
Arcane. That's just Arcane.
Yeah. It's just Arcane. Also, for me, it comes from a personal sense of enjoyment from the character. Like how
Yep.
much. So it's for me. It is more like they're given a setting. They're
Hmm.
given a character. How much can the setting do justice to the character, and how much can the character do justice to the setting?
Yep. Yep.
And
I
I feel
agree.
like the balance was perfect with Emily.
Hmm.
Perfect with Emily. Dishonored 1, I feel like Corvo could have a voice,
I was just gonna say this. I was just gonna
right?
say that if Dishonored 1, if Corvo had a voice, like a
Yeah,
voiced character,
like a voiced character.
I think he would have just blown the game out of the water.
Exactly.
Like that would have
So
been the
it feels like you're just a vessel. Like
yeah.
then it just feels like any. Like, I don't want to say it's quite reductive, and it's not that bad, but it does feel like you're just a nameless, faceless protagonist because you have to be. They could have
Yep.
given him a voice.
You know,
Don't make him.
you
Don't
know,
make him
it's like
cold quickly, but give him a voice.
it's like, it's like imagine if the Dragonborn from Skyrim had a voice.
Yeah.
What would it have
And
done to the entire story probably? It would have just added another layer to the game.
yeah.
I think it you don't notice it. You don't miss it, but you will
Yeah.
feel the absence. That's what I'm trying to say over here.
And I did like because then they went in with Dishonored 2, and as much as I want to say his voice acting was good there, in whatever little bit that he
Uh,
does have,
I think he did a good
it's
job.
not it's not a Corvo story though, right?
It's not a
At the
Corvus.
end,
It's not even. It's he's not the story really. I think. In fact, incidentally, I don't know if I've told you this, but I have not played Dishonored 2 as Corvo. I mean, I have, but I haven't
I
finished the game
have
as Corvo.
I've beaten the game as both characters. I've beaten the game 4 times.
Oh, you did all high
So
chaos, low chaos, high chaos, low
I
chaos.
I no. It ended up yeah, I think I did. I don't remember.
Okay.
Maybe. But I have beaten it 4 times.
So all I've done
Uh
with Dishonored 2 is Emily high chaos, Emily low chaos, Corvo halfway low chaos, and then that's about it.
Oh yeah, I was trying. Yeah, so I've done it 4 times. I've done high chaos, low chaos, high chaos, low chaos. I haven't done the one where you don't choose powers. That's the one that I'm missing. Um,
Ah,
yeah, I'm not going to. It's no.
that's
Uh,
just
I
that's
play
just
Dishonored for the powers. Very partial over there. But here's the thing, right? Like when you play as Corvo, there's not a lot of dialogue.
yeah,
As
yeah.
far as I remember, I played this 3 years ago, 4 years ago. there isn't a lot of dialogue, which is again like you give him a dialogue in the beginning of the game and the cutscenes and all that. I just feel like make it a story, make it a consistent story. That would be totally fine by me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I feel like Emily has the perfect motivation, perfect balance, and then Colt is just like he is
Colt is
sass.
sensational.
He is
That's the word.
sass.
That's the word.
He is he is sass. He is brute. He is every personality. Just the perfect balance of all the quirks you would expect from a dude in the 60s, like a
Yep.
security dude in the 60s.
Yep. Yep.
Uh,
100% agree with you.
the
Personality,
gunslinging
personality wise, he's just precise. He's just perfect.
is great.
But
That's how I.
that's the thing, right? I mean, there are these. I keep asking myself this question honestly, and I probably will come to a conclusion at some point as to which character and which game I rank the best and the worst of the entire
Yeah,
Arcane repertoire. But there are so many metrics that I want to take into consideration for these specific
yeah.
challenges,
Absolutely.
because there are some instances where maybe the voice actor falls off, but the heroism of the character themselves is so sensational. Like
Mm.
I think from a protagonist perspective, Corvo is probably the
Corvo
best
is. Yeah.
because he's essentially the savior of Dunwall and the savior of Karnaka in a way.
Mm.
Like the
Yeah.
from the impact perspective, Corvo probably has the most impact, arguably,
Oh yeah.
because he's essentially changed the fate of an entire empire. Whereas Emily is just like reclaiming her throne. I'm not saying that it's
Yeah.
demeaning or anything, but
No, no, no. I
there are
totally
so many
get.
metrics that I have to consider when I would rank these things. It's like so crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Corvo theory could be applied for Morgan as well.
For Morgan as well, essentially, yeah.
That's
Oh
a good
man,
way to look at it.
crazy, crazy. I will do it at some point. I will definitely rank these things at some point, but right now it's just
Also,
impossible.
these feel like ever-changing opinions. Like tomorrow, I might
Yeah,
wake up and be like, "Let me play Dishonored," and I'll be like, "Fuck no, wait, Corvo's the best." Like
recency bias kicks in. Yeah, no doubt about it.
exactly.
No doubt about it. All
Yeah.
right, great. I think we have a little more time for closing thoughts, parting
Final
thoughts.
thoughts. I am not going to take too much time with this. I fucking love Deathloop. It is not a 10 on 10. It is at worst a 7 on 10, at best maybe an 8, 8.5. I'm not going to give it a 9. 9 puts it way too close to a perfect game, and I don't think anything can beat the likes of God of War right now. So let's wait. Yeah, I feel like 8 is just sweet spot. I
Yep. I'm going to go with 8.5 too. Yep, that's where I'm
not
at.
giving it. Yeah, and like if I don't have to give it a score, I'm just like my final thought is go play it.
Yes.
Just go play it. You will either love it or you will hate it. But
Yep.
if you like any of Arkane's older games, you will definitely love it.
Yep. Yep. I agree. I think that I think this game warrants, and this is probably where I feel like the accessibility part is just like it's like, ah man, come on, like give it the accessibility it needs. But
Yeah.
that aside, I think if you can, and if you manage to get your hands on a PS5, which is a far bigger myth right now,
Mm.
uh, you should definitely play Deathloop, because this game just demands a play. It just demands you to absorb, soak
Experience.
in,
Yeah.
uh, get
It's
mesmerized by the entirety of the world that Arkane has built. And it's a small world, incidentally, but
very
it's a
small.
world that doesn't feel small as you play through it, because
Yeah.
every little detail has been thought through. Every instance of visual fidelity is something that's going to, shock. It's going to deliver shock and awe. And
Mm.
every pull of the trigger is going to be something that's really going to make you feel, fuck, that's a great. That's a great game.
Yeah. I think I tweeted this out or something. It's like Deathloop is so simple, its simplicity is what makes it larger than life.
Yep,
And
I
I feel
agree. I
like that
110% agree.
summarizes it quite well.
You don't need to make complex games. Just make the games complex enough.
Exactly. That is so good.
All right, my friend. With that, I think we
So
can safely conclude the Deathloop podcast.
yeah.
Arcane, if you ever happen to watch this, Dinga, if you ever happen to watch this by any chance,
Oh,
big fan. Great game.
sign my copy.
Great game. Make Deathloop 2, make Dishonored 3, and we're good. Thank you.
And DLC.
And
Yeah.
DLC. Oh
And
man,
DLC.
make DLC.
Send copy to Games 8.
This game needs it, please.
This game so needs.
But really, this is a great game. Play it if you can, enjoy it, and I'm sure you won't be disappointed. And on that note, It's time to reset the loop, Kedar. We have a lot more coming up pretty soon. And we have plenty of games to talk about in the coming sessions, which we will get to
Mm.
eventually.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
let's not forget, we have our Game of the Year awards coming up right around the corner.
Oh
Just about 2
my,
months, which are going to fly by pretty soon.
very soon.
So look forward
So
to
many
more on the
games to
channel.
look forward to within that time.
Look forward to more on the channel. I'm going to be playing Kenna pretty soon.
Mm.
And of course, Death
Mm.
Stranding DLC. Kedar, what are you going to be playing?
I have no fucking idea. I'll probably pick up some indie game like Deltarune's out,
All
the
right.
spiritual sequel to Undertale. So maybe that.
All
Yeah.
right. Great. So look forward to having us again, guys. We will be back with some more content pretty soon. And
Very soon.
until then, it's time to reset the
Reset
loop.
the loop.
See you next time.